Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Linda West, and I'm so excited to be here. I see we've got Denise on board. Woo, woo, Denise, good to see you today. And I'm excited here to talk to Ron Klein. Now, Ron Klein, I met about 2 years ago at an event called Secret Knock, which is an absolutely amazing event. And Ron was one of the speakers. And I was so thrilled by what he was talking about and just like really enamored. And then I had to get to know him. And then what did I find out about him? He loves doing karaoke, but let me introduce you to him first, and then he and I are going to start off with a song, one of his favorite songs. We're going to start off with that. So Ron is the inventor of the credit card magnetic strip, that strip that goes on the back of our credit cards. For those of you who have been alive long enough, remember those days when we had to use that silly machine like this? Ron got rid of that, so that was awesome. In addition to that, he is the developer of the MLS, the multiple listing service that real estate agents use, and then also the voice response in the banking industry. And he automated the New York Stock Exchange. This guy is so brilliant. Ron, what's it like to be so brilliant?
I don't know. I've never looked at it that way. I'm just a problem solver, that's all.
That's because you're really curious, right? I have lots of questions and stuff.
I ask a lot of questions. Some people think I'm a pain in the neck, because he's constantly asking me questions.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
my husband says that about me. He's like, you ask too many questions. I'm curious.
Well, fortunately, they don't call me an itch. They just say, God, you ask a lot of questions. But I tell them that I simplify and get them to understand what they already know. They say, huh?
Yeah, I know. I had to let me ponder that for about a half hour, and then we'll come back to it. Hey, let's start off with our song. I'm so excited to sing with you, and I can't wait to see you in December when you and Arlene are out. Arlene's there. There she is. Come on, poke your head in there, Arlene. So poke her head in there. She's there somewhere. But they're coming out.
I just love to spread cheer, so
yes.
I don't want too much laughter while we're doing this. But hopefully a Hollywood producer will be watching, and it might come out right. I'll probably miss every other word because we're going to sing along with Frank Sinatra. Okay,
yeah, we need help. So there's Arlene. Say hi, Arlene. Oh, she's not in the picture, though. You got to get right behind Ron. Here, wait. Yeah, because let me see. Hold on a second. I'm going to show. There we go. There's Arlene. Say hi.
Hi there, Linda.
It's so good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Are you going to sing along with us, Arlene?
Oh, no, I leave that all to the two of you. You're much better.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's go, Ron.
In front of you? Have you got the words in front of you?
I do.
Okay, I've got YouTube on, so Frank Sinatra is going to get started, and we're going to help him out. Here we go.
Okay, let's do it. I feel like dancing.
That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. No, I'm gonna change that when I'm back on top.
Oh, we're ahead.
On top in June.
I said that's
life. And as funny as it may seem, some people get their kicks
stomping on a dream. But I let it get me down. 'Cause it's fine.
The whole world, it keeps me spinning around. Here's the best part.
Oh, yeah.
Been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet,
a pawn,
born in a king. I'm
up,
down,
and over and down.
And I know one thing. Each time I put myself flat on
my face, I pick myself up, I pick back in the race.
Oh, that's life.
That's life.
I tell you, I can't deny it. I thought
of quitting, baby, but my heart just ain't gonna buy it.
If I didn't think it was worth trying, I jumped right up.
Big Bird.
big bird and fly.
Fly.
Here we go. I've been a puppet, a pirate, a poet, and a pawn king. Been up and down and over and out. I know one thing. Each time I find myself laying flat on my face, I pick myself up and get back in the. Oh, that's life.
That's life.
That's life, and I can't deny it. Anytime
I thought of cutting out, baby.
I hope. Well, let me buy it. There's nothing come this July. I'm gonna go myself up in a big ball, and oh my
There, Arlene says.
Got me started.
Arlene says we're on the way to Hollywood. Hey,
we're
Richard.
there. We're there.
Yeah, we're on our way to Hollywood. So, oh my gosh.
I can't see the audience, because if the audience would look at me, I don't know whether they're throwing tomatoes now or just saying, get off, get off. I love it. I love it.
I'm sure they really, really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks. Thanks for letting me do it.
Yeah, that was fun. Well, again, in December, we're going to do some karaoke. We're going to sing some songs. And of course, we're going to dance, Ron.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, I want to go back to like where it all started.
When
there
you
are.
You turn that off. Sorry. Okay, it started.
Okay, so we're going back to where it all started. There you are, a little tyke wearing that little tie.
It's too short.
And this is where it all started. So first, how old were you in this picture?
About 4 years old.
4 years old. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Philadelphia a long time ago, 1935.
Woo!
Yeah. I came from a very wealthy family. My dad was a postal worker and my mom worked in a department store. So I was very spoiled.
Yeah, exactly. Did you ever see your dad, or was he traveling all the time from city to city?
Well, no, he traveled from mailbox to mailbox.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's so cute. I love that picture. That tie I guess that's probably the style back then, I don't know.
I still have it. Arlene washes it and irons it and dries it for me. It works out because, striped ties are in again.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And you did say that you haven't grown much since then.
No, a couple inches.
Couple inches. Well, what I want to know is like, how did you, like, what makes a person think, I've got a credit card and I want to simplify it? Like, what makes a person even like go there? What's the thought process?
Well, it was probably one of the simplest challenges I ever confronted with when I finally got out of the service and got back into the workforce. A director of a very large department store came to me. Yeah, I was in the service, okay. And after I got out of the service in the 50s, I was an engineer for hire, and a director of a very large department store came to me and said, Ron, we have a situation, we have a problem. Can you solve it? Because I was known as somebody that could really think fast and solve problems. So I said, well, what is it? And they said, well, it's so slow because when you were describing it, you have to write up the sales slip and then put the credit card into a little machine and print it against a little sales slip. And right then, it was only your name was embossed on the credit card and the account number. And I figured, well, and what they want to do is speed this process up and not leave the whole decision as to whether it's good credit or bad credit to the merchant. And right around that time, reel-to-reel tape recorders came out. And I said, I've got a great idea. I built a little system that had memory, and I took all the negative account numbers that the credit card companies would give the merchants every month in a big, long book, because they'd have to look up that number every time somebody would come up and make a purchase to make sure your number wasn't in there. And I said, geez, I could really speed that process up. And what I did was, I said, right around that time, reel-to-reel tape recorders came out. I said, if I could take a little piece of that magnetic tape, cut it, and paste it on the back of the plastic credit card, and record the account number on that piece of tape, and then build a little device at the point of sale that mimics the tape recorder and make you the motor. Here we go. Just swipe it. In other words, because the tape recorder has motors in it that moves the tape, and I figured, okay, I'm just going to put that little piece of tape on the card and make the human the motor. Just swipe it through that little thing. And that was how simple the invention was. And now the merchant didn't have to worry about making the decision. The decision was made on the card, the little memory system. And it's what's interesting, I patented that in 1966. And, you ask yourself, in this world of obsolescence, how in the world can something that simple last for all these years? And nobody really had the answer. You know why? Because on the magnetic strip, it doesn't require energy. And something that doesn't require energy doesn't radiate. So at the point of sale, it's not something transmitting that information all over. That's why it lasted so long. Like the new cards with the chip, once you put it in that machine, it radiates and it can transmit, and somebody close by with a scanner can scan your information. But that's a whole other situation. So that's how simple the magnetic strip was. I looked at it and I said, what's the issue? And what's the solution we're looking for? And just came up with the fastest thing I could. So
that is just amazing. Well, I have a question. So you patented in 1966, you said?
1956, and it took 3 years. It took until 1969 before the patent was actually awarded.
Okay, but when did it become mainstream? Because I was a bank teller in 1981, 82, and we were still using this thing.
Right, that was the manual thing just to imprint. But it actually came out in 1970 with American Express. They were the first ones to utilize it in the process. What you were doing, you were using the old antiquated method of embossing the sales slip. At the same time, not to make the story too long, at the same time that I invented the magnetic strip, I also came up with a little machine where you would put the sales slip in automatically, and if the credit was good, it would automatically motorize the roller and imprint it.
Oh my goodness!
Basically, they didn't need that little pressure device anymore. So it's really just a simple device.
Yeah, simple. Sounds really simple.
Probably would have thought of the same thing.
It kind of reminds me of when I say, shoot, I could dress up as a purple dinosaur and be Barney,
Or like a big chicken, a yellow big chicken. That's simple.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's really amazing. I'm so glad you invented like all these really great things. And I do remember going through the book, finding like, where's the number, trying to see if they were delinquent. And back in those days, oh my God, you could like run your credit card up for weeks before the bank would even catch up with you,
Great.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it myself, but.
Listen, you have to keep asking me a lot of questions or I might sing again.
Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
The next song I would sing, Linda, the next song would be My Way.
My Way, okay. I'll be ready for that. Now, you met this beautiful woman here back in what year?
1959. We had just bought that car, which was a 1959 Impala Chevrolet, and we went on our honeymoon. And this was when we were on our way back from where we stayed at our honeymoon. How about that?
Where was your honeymoon? Where'd you guys go?
The Nevele Country Club in upstate New York.
Nice. Stylish.
Young and skinny then, too. Wow, look at this.
You're still skinny.
And we didn't have any white hair. I didn't have any of that white hair.
Oh, but you're still young, too. Young at heart, because really, time is really irrelevant, right? It's all about what's in the heart.
I get it, Linda. Maybe that's why my clients keep telling me, Ron, you never grew up.
Yeah. Okay. So how did the MLS idea come along? Was it kind of like along the same lines of the credit card strip?
Pretty simple. What happened? Well, I became known as the problem solver. Give your problems to Ron, and he'll find the answer, because I turned every problem into a challenge. But I'm going to tell you one quick thing. I preach that success is being smart, daring, and different. And when I say smart, I don't mean a PhD from Harvard. I mean pay attention, learn something new every day, be aware, so you know what's going on. And then daring is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Because if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning anything. And the last thing that was so important is to be different. Don't try and sell ideas, sell benefits. If it's not a benefit, it's not going to fly. So with that, this is what my theory was, and this is what I was known for. So the National Board of Realtors came to me in 1967 and said, we have a little bit of a situation. If somebody who's buying a house or selling a house lives in one location, when they get to the next location, they would want the realtors to know what it is that you were looking for. 3-bedroom house, a swimming pool, near a school, so on and so forth. And I said, well, what I'd like to do is every realtor that takes a listing, have them put it into a central computer, which was in Chicago. And then I built with all the parameters of what they want. In other words, all the things that they want in the house. And then I built a little suitcase terminal. Now, this was before Touchtone phones. They still had dial-up phones and things like that.
Okay.
I built a little suitcase terminal with batteries in it and an acoustic coupler. And the acoustic coupler would dial up the computer in Chicago, take the handset from the telephone and put it in this acoustic coupler. And then I had a whole bunch of switches on the little suitcase unit where they can put in all the different things that they would want, the priorities, then push a button, and I would scan the thumb wheel switches and beep tones down the line into the computer. The computer would say, oh, I know what that means, and they would register it. And then every real estate agent would have a teletypist. They didn't have internet or PCs then.
Right.
That could print out the parameters of the house. And that was the start and the invention of multiple listing.
Oh my goodness. I just think that's just crazy. I can't help but thinking that. But so when somebody says, hey, we got this problem, how do you work it back? So that's what. Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Somebody comes to me with a problem. And I say, okay, first of all, it's not a problem because problems are frustration. Tear that out of your dictionary. It's a challenge. And there's a gift behind every challenge and an opportunity. So they come to me with a problem and I say, okay, let's solve this like we did when we were in 8th grade. What's the given? What's the issue? What's the thing you're looking for? What's the solution you're looking for, personally and business-wise? And everything in between is the journey. It's the minutia of what's going to go on. It's, you're going to make your mistakes. You're going to have your stickability. You're going to make changes, but there's always only plan A. So if you painted the wrong color the first time, just paint it a different color. Plan A, but you have to always look back and say, what's the given? What's the issue? What's the solution I'm looking for? And once you define that and drastically simplify it, the rest is a piece of cake.
So when you're, so you come up with an idea or something that you want to create, invent, and you're in that path, like that thinking path, do you actually go and whiteboard everything out first, or do you just look at this is the solution, but how do I get there? I'm just going to take one step and see what happens next.
Great question.
Thanks.
First of all, I don't sit in a think tank like this and say, oh, what am I going to invent today?
Okay.
I'm an innovator person. I'm an innovator and a problem solver. So what happens is that I flowchart everything. Even, let's say if you wanted to make a movie, and I talk about flowcharting, because graphics are very easy to understand between people. Most people are not real good listeners, or they're busy thinking about what they see and what they don't see. So it's a matter, like what Einstein said years ago. If you can't explain what you do or what your challenge is in one sentence or less, you don't understand it yourself. So I'm saying, let's say a person wants to make a movie, how simple that is. What do you need? You need a camera, you need a subject, you need a person, you need a location, et cetera, et cetera. I take a little piece of paper and I draw a box. Camera, location, subject, and so on and so forth, and then I connect the lines. Say, well, I need this first, and then I need that, and so on and so forth. And then I look at it and say, well, what if? And then I draw a decision box. And what if this? So before I know it, I have a graphic representation of a simple thing of how do I make a move. And I'm using that as a very simple example, not comparing that to a very complex problem. Once I have that, I can sit down and look at it and say, do I get it? Is this really the issue? And then I go to the person that I'm working with and I say, is this your problem? Is this the issue? And they say, yeah, that's it. Then we go to work. Okay?
Sounds so simple.
You got it. That's the word, simple. That's me. You know, you've heard of Simple Simon? I'm Simple Ron.
Simple Ron. Well, you are known as the grandfather of possibilities, correct?
Yes.
So I want to ask you, were you first the father of possibilities before you became the grandfather?
No, they asked me that question, though, because it was interesting how it came about. I was on a radio show with a speaker, a famous speaker, Willie Jolly, one time. And he said, Ron, I just want to hear so much more. And I'm in New Orleans, and I'm going to be there with my wife. How would you like to come to New Orleans, all expenses paid, just to have dinner with me? And I did that. We were sitting and talking. And his wife, Dee, said, Ron, tell me about your background. You must have very famous parents. And I said, very famous and loving parents, but nothing that great special. They came from a middle-class family. Dad was a postal worker. Mom was a department store worker. However, my grandfather, my mother's father, was a pretty famous inventor, and he was my mentor. I followed him everywhere. And she said, well, what did he do? And I said, well, first thing he invented was the boiler system that propelled steamships to turn to prop. And she said, wow, very impressive. Then during the First World War, he invented the torpedo detectors for submarines. Wow. And then he was a great tailor. He invented the first pressing machine. Those big pressing machines that pressure close at the laundry. And that was cool. And then even when TVs first came out, he invented the rabbit ears, the little manual rabbit ears that sat on top of the television and you spin them around. So I always followed him all the time, and he was really my mentor. And then Dee, Willie Jolly's wife, said, well, you're almost like your grandfather. He had so many possibilities. You have possibilities. And I said, uh-oh, you just got my trademark. I'm the grandfather of possibilities.
That's the title of the book.
Actually, let me show you.
Yes, the book.
That's it. There's our book that my great writer wife wrote all about me. So that's how that name came about.
And they can find that book on Amazon.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks for that plug.
Yes, of course. And I'm going to put it up on the screen in a second here when I can figure out the quick way to do it. So, wow, that's really great. So your grandfather, so it kind of skipped a generation. Your grandfather was an inventor, and then your father, postal worker. But then I'm going to follow Grandpa everywhere because I love what he's doing.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you invented? Very first thing.
When I was a young boy, I invented, I don't know if I invented it, but I understood electronics, I understood technical stuff, and this was even before I went into the service. So I was I guess maybe not even a teenager yet. I understood about electricity and magnetism, and I took, and this is cool, I don't know if everybody's going to get this, I'll try and simplify it. I took a nail, wrapped a lot of wire around the nail, and connected it to a little battery. When you do that, it makes the nail a magnet, okay? In other words, if you put power around a piece of metal and energize it, that device will become a magnet. Then I took a little piece of tin and made a wheel out of it with little notches, like little fingers on the tin, cut it out, and I mounted that just in front of the nail, and I figured, I think I can build a motor. I don't know, it was just the principle of that. And when I would connect to the battery and put the little wheel close to the magnet of the nail, it would spin the wheel. And that was my first invention without knowing that it's a real invention. It wasn't a real invention, but I figured, wow, I just made something work with a little electricity. So that was my first invention. After that, when I actually got into my career, and I came out of the service, The first thing I developed and invented was for the Philadelphia Electric Company, a load and frequency system. What that means is how they take all their power generators and generate power and network them together through oil, through coal, through steam, through hydropower, water coming over a dam. And I figured, wow, you must be paying attention to something. So that was my first pseudo invention, building and developing a system. Then I came up with, before the credit card, I'm sorry, the credit card was the first, okay? Then after the credit card, I worked with a gentleman by the name of Frank, who had a great idea and a formula on how to grow chickens in 8 weeks to full maturity instead of the normal long term. Worked with him and his formula and developed the system, and we were able to grow healthier chickens to full maturity in 8 weeks rather than what the normal growth record was. And that man, you may have heard of Mr. Purdue. Frankie, do you ever hear of Frank Purdue?
Yeah.
Right, I'm joking, but that's it.
Okay.
That was my first real big development job. Then it was the credit card. And then after the credit card, it was multiple listing in 1967.
Okay.
And voice response for the banking industry, where just when Touchtone phones came out, I came up with a system where you can hit Touchtone characters, and that would, if you hit them with the numbers would go in. But then if you hit a pound sign first, and then you could use the alphabet, so you can actually put in your information into the banking system, and the banking system would come back in voice. And the first device that I invented in voice was very mechanical. It sounded like a robot. This is, and then after I put that out, then I synthesized the voice. I took all the verbal points to put it on a magnetic drum and actually generated what sounded like live voice. So you would key in your account information on the Touchtone phone and get back voice. So that's still around for a long time. Then,
let me ask a question about that. So
then I really got into some heavy stuff.
I do remember the robot sound, of the voice response. And then I remember, about the time when it switched to being more realistic voice. So was that a real person's voice, or were you able to mechanically make that voice sound real?
It started out with a real person's voice, and it was a pretty simple. Remember, this was back in the early days when we didn't have they didn't even invent the word software yet. Everything was electronic and mechanical. So I used a great big cycling drum, magnetic drum, that would cycle like in milliseconds, pretty quick. And it had many, many read heads. It was like a gigantic tape recorder. And I would record a word on each magnetic location, and then predicated on what I wanted the answer to be, I would call for each one of those words and put together sentences. Then what I did was I electronically synthesized those voices, and so it would sound more human. So that was a long time ago.
I just think how interesting it is that you think that way. I mean, like my mind's not on that at all. My mind's about how can I have as much fun doing crazy, weird things, and you're just inventing all these amazing things that are really literally changing the way you're changing time. You're saving us so much time and energy, and it's so amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You know what? Not only is it saving time, I lump it into one big word. Whatever I come up with, an invention or something new, it provides a benefit. If it doesn't provide a benefit, it's not worthy. So everything that I can talk about, or anything that I solve in a way of a solution, provides a benefit. And that took me into my major career at the New York Stock Exchange, and I was there for over a quarter of a century, automating, creating. I developed the bond quotation trade system, and it was just benefit. So that's a whole story in itself.
Do you want to tell it?
Tell it. Let me see. I got to tell it real quick because I know you don't want to run out of time. I had built early in the 60s my company, and it was growing and growing. We needed money, so I got private funding. And then from private funding, I took it public. I had built that company up to 125 employees, and it was really growing big because we were solving lots of good problems. And a major insurance company came to me and said, Ron, we would like to buy your company. And I was reaching retirement age. I was 34 years old. So I figured, well, it's time to retire at 34. So I sold the company and I figured, okay, I'm going to fish. I fished for 3 weeks and I figured, this is not for me. I went back to the company and I said, let me go, take my stock options back. I want freedom. And from that, I walked away from that company and started a new company. And I had no idea as to what I was even going to call it. I called it General Associates because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I figured, okay, you know what? I'll sell other people's equipment and products because I'm really sharp in communication stuff and teletypes. And until I know what I'm going to do, I don't want it to be labor intensified. I'm talking fast because I tell fast stories. That I'll do this. So I was out selling some communication equipment, calling on an old client of mine. And while I was selling the communication equipment, I saw a bid sheet from Western Union on his desk. And I said, hey, what is that? And he said, oh, well, we're in the communication business. We buy a lot of surplus teletypes and refurbished teletypes from Western Union, but we don't have any need for it now. You're welcome to the bid sheet. Long story short, I got myself a truck, went to Allentown where all this stuff was stored, and I started bidding on teletypes. And I was buying teletypes for 10 cents on the dollar. And right around that time, PCs came out and they needed input-output devices, and teletype was the device of choice. I was now in the business of refurbishing some teletypes and selling them to people who wanted to interface. I took them home to my basement. I got some mineral spirits in a compressor to blow them off and some oil and so on and so forth. And I was doing it down in the basement, loving it. And Arlene was going nuts because the mineral spirits, the stink from the mineral spirits was going up through the heat ducts and polluting the house. Anyway, the major decision in my career came about when a guy came to buy a teletype from my garage one day, and he asked to use my men's room. And I said, this is my home. We don't have a men's room, but you're welcome to use the powder room. Right. And he came out, bought the teletype, and left. Arlene came running out 5 minutes later, and I got to show you, she did this. You take your teletypes, you take your mineral spirits, you take your compressor, and you take everything, go find yourself an office. That guy had lousy aim and peed all over the floor. I left there and opened up a little office, and I was now in the teletype parts business. I was happy. Here's the story. A few months later, I get a call from Western Union. They're going to divest themselves of all their equipment and come bid on this stuff. And it was the old teletypes. They had 12,000, and I said, I'm going to bid on it. I was the only one that bid on it. I won 12,000 for pennies on the dollar. I started scratching my head. Where were the rest of the bidders? I forgot to ask where the teletypes were. 4,000 were in a warehouse very close to where I was, my home, within 60 miles. The other 8,000 were all over the United States. And they said, now, you know, Ron, you've got to take possession of these in 30 days. I said, holy cool. What am I going to do now? My challenge was to liquidate these things, get rid of them, and not have liabilities. I didn't care about the machines anymore because the 4,000 I could make enough profit on. What did I do? I called the junk man. Junk man came, he looked in the bottom of the machines. He said, wow, these are loaded with electronic circuit cards. And they were built in the 1950s. They were used on battleships for communications and so on. So they were very structurally built so they wouldn't rust. And he said, you realize that these circuit cards are all gold traces? And I said, what's that mean? He said, well, low conductivity. He said, we can dip these things in a cyanide bath. The gold salts will be eaten off the boards, rise to the top. We'll skim it off and we'll split the profits on the gold. And in that year, gold went from $35 an ounce to $800 an ounce. We were fat in cash.
Oh my gosh.
Terrible. Well, I turned the challenge into gold. And then I said, okay, but now I have nothing but junk. I've got keyboards and printers and all this other stuff that won't work. What do I do? So we called the junk man back again. And right around that time, there was a foreign car, I won't mention the name, foreign car dealer or manufacturer that had a rust problem with their bodies. And they didn't have enough chromium in their steel. We found out that the cabinets, because they were used on battleships, were loaded with chromium. I I called this automobile company, said, take all this stuff, it's free, just get me rid of it. And that's how I got rid of that problem. 3 weeks later, I get a call from the New York Stock Exchange. They said, we called Western Union, and they said that they liquidated all their teletypes to a little company in New Jersey, and you happen to own now 273 special teletypes that we use as inquiry stations on the trading floor. Do you want to do business? And I said, great. I gave them a full payout lease over 2 years, and I said, but now I need to do the maintenance on these machines. And they said, absolutely, we don't want to maintain them. We started this company at the New York Stock Exchange, hired a guy, and there I was every day on the New York Stock Exchange floor taking care of my teletype. As I looked around, and the story's coming to an end, as I looked around, I saw that on the bond trading floor, it was still manual operation. Guys on telephones, quoting in auctions. The equity market, the stock market was automated. The bond market wasn't. I went and I said, geez, I could simplify this and automate this market. And they said, Ron, they've been doing it like this for 205 years. They're not going to change. I said, if I could change it, automate it in a simple way so they can trade at their desks upstairs in their offices, would you give me an exclusive license to disseminate corporate listed bonds for the New York Stock Exchange? They said, certainly, because it'll never happen. I entered into a contract. I built this little filter box that hooked on their main communication line, bought some video terminals, and I tried it, and it's great. It was only filtering out the bonds, and it was giving them the bid and the quote and the ask information right on the screen. Fantastic. I started making phone calls to all the bond traders all over Wall Street. If I wasn't buying or selling a bond in 5 seconds, they would hang up on me. I figured, how am I going to sell this thing? So I appointed the biggest manager on Wall Street in charge of bonds, the biggest firm. And I said, I'm going to run a telephone line to your office, give you a little box and a video terminal, and you're going to have the information before anything even happens on the trading floor. They said, sure, why not? He starts using it, and his phone rang off the hook because everybody on the trading floor was saying, Joe, what the heck are you doing? For the last week, we can't even top a bond. You're topping everything on the bond. And they said, and they did it like this. He said, you need one of these little Ron Klein boxes. That was the start of 36 years of tremendous renting this little Ron Klein box to all the traders on Wall Street and charging them. Well, first I charged them $10,000 to join my club, each trader. Many traders on Wall Street. And then I said, well, okay, but now you have to buy this little box. And they said, oh, no, we don't buy anything on Wall Street. We only rent. I figured, I got to think fast. It cost me $100 to build. I said, how's $300 a month? And they said, fantastic. That's wonderful. It was there for a quarter of a century. That's the New York Stock Exchange, okay?
The Ron Klein box, right?
It all started with a bid sheet on a guy's desk that says, here, go bid.
Wow. Yeah, so that's really great. So when does your mind just always go to how can I make something better? How can I benefit others? And then you're always kind of thinking, how can I create something different?
Everybody, remember I was talking about what's the given, what's the solution you're looking for, and everything else in between, the journey and minutia. 99% of all my clients start at the journey. They forget to really analyze the situation. And how can you provide a benefit if you really can't identify the challenge? So my mind is always listening. I have lots of clients. I help lots of people. But I'm really identifying what is the challenge, how we can simplify it, and provide a benefit. Remember in the beginning of our conversation, I said, I teach people how to simplify and understand what they already know. Hopefully that wasn't a joke.
Yeah.
I got to get this stuff off my screen. Okay.
Okay. Now you also run a mastermind group, right?
I run many mastermind groups, and also I have a new invention that came out a couple of years ago to help the visually impaired, and that's really consuming a lot of my time now. But the mastermind groups, yes. We put together like-minded individuals, small businesses, larger businesses, and we put these people together, and I consult them. I don't necessarily coach them. Coaching is where you're asking them hard questions and trying to get them to solve their own problems. I'm actually consulting for them, identifying the challenge, giving them concepts and ideas on how I would approach it, and then bringing them in. So I do that in many ways. I run a lot of mastermind groups, and I have lots of consulting sessions for a variety of clients. I'm pretty really sharp in intellectual property, and I help a lot of people with their intellectual property, vetting their systems, and I even work with a lot of IP attorneys, guiding them through identifying what the field challenge should be.
So that's nice, because as a consultant, they come in, like they have an idea. I'm going to assume like they have an idea and they don't really know how to get there. And so you kind of like help them work through the process. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, that, and even before they get into the actual task and process, I make sure the housekeeping of their organization is properly aligned and put together. So many will take ideas and they don't know where to start, how to build a company, how to fund the company properly, how to identify what the true challenges are. So I take it from the incubation all the way through to the first tranche of maybe even getting that funding.
So let's see, this is your website, the Grandfather of Possibilities, right, .com, so they can find you there. But I want to bring up this last picture that we have of you. This is at the Senior Olympics. Is that what this was?
That was the Senior Olympics, and I won gold in 2003.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I was voted Athlete of the Year in Sarasota County in 2003.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, was that a triathlon or did you do the bike?
Yeah, first it was triathlon, of which I did the biking for a team. Then for the Senior Olympics, it was time trials, 5K, 10K, and 20K. So it was just like what you see on Tour de France, you're racing against yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's
I started out with bronze and then started out with silver and moved to silver, and I finally eventually won the gold medal.
Well, congratulations. That's amazing. I've done some marathons and half marathons, but I've never done a triathlon. I'm not sure how to swim. Like I never learned. I live in San Diego, born and raised, and I never learned how to swim. Is that crazy?
Well, I'm not really a swimmer, and I'm not really a runner because I have a serious back condition. But in fact, that's how I started on biking, because I get lots of relief when I'm riding on my bike, on the racing bike. And then I just kept riding and riding for relief and became so perfected at it. They were saying, well, how about joining a triathlon team and be our biker? And that worked great. And then they were saying, well, geez, you're ready for the Senior Olympics. And
wow.
Yeah, so I still ride a bike, still out there pedaling.
So you're a gold medal Olympian.
Well, a senior gold medal.
I was wondering if you'd correct me on that one. Do you have your medal?
I don't want to take too much credit. Yeah, I have medals hanging up. And let's see, how can I do that? I can't.
Yeah, I don't know if you can unless you have a camera that you can pick up and move and stuff. Okay, so one last question. So you had your very first invention. Did you just you invented it, the thing with the nail and everything, and then just throw it away, or do you still have that?
Probably somewhere, but my problem is I've got so much stuff. In fact, Arlene says I sure do. When I developed the multiple listing terminal, and that was in 1967, and I was just interviewed by some realtors and a real estate association. They said, wouldn't it be wonderful if you still had something? I went into storage. I actually dug out something from 1967, totally, of everything about MLS. So I don't have the little gadget from when I was an adolescent, but I do have some stuff that goes all the way back into the...
Wow. That's for the history books for sure.
Right.
Oh, okay. I do have one last question.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have the little the thing on the credit cards now on the front. I can't remember what it's called. So, what do you think of that? And because I know you did mention about I don't know if you use the word organic or not, but the words you use analog, was the strip, and then now they have that magnetic what's that thing called?
The chip.
Yeah. So the chip, people can pick up information off of the chip, right? So like if they're standing next to us. So what do you think? Like, what's the future of that chip? Do you think it's going to last?
Are you asking me the question of how I evaluate and how I think about the chip? You really want my answer?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm going to try and be kind. Okay.
Oh, no need for that. I don't need that.
Well, let me describe. I'll be polite. I remember. Well, you remember I told you that the nice thing about the magnetic strip and the reason in this world of obsolescence it has lasted all these years doesn't require energy. If something doesn't require energy, it doesn't radiate. Anything that doesn't radiate, there can't be any fraudulent protection at the point of sale. If there was any fraudulence or if there was things that happened, it happened after the point of sale with the man in the middle and at the server. Now we have a device that's a computer chip.
Right.
And the people that developed this computer chip and the computer chip on the credit card did wonderful things because they came out with an algorithm that computes, every time that you use that, it computes a new algorithm and PIN number so that it's pretty hard to duplicate. Great. However, when you put your credit card with the chip in the little machine that costs the merchants a lot of money because now they just can't have the old simple machine. They have to have something that reads a new card, very expensive. It energizes that chip so it can read it. When you energize a little chip or computer, what do you think happens? It becomes a transmitter. If I stand a few feet away from you with a little scanner and I watch you put the card in the machine and I turn the scanner on, I could say, thank you for all the information that you just compromised. That's not good, Linda.
That's scary.
How about when it's in your pocket or purse and I come up behind you in a crowd and I have a little scanner and I energize the chip remotely from the scanner and I can put it right off here. So if you're walking around with a chip credit card, you better have it in a protective sleeve that they sell. They sell these protective sleeves, get shielded. And if you don't have a protective sleeve, you better wrap it in there.
Wow. So just being in your purse and a wallet is not going to protect it because it can still go through. Wow.
It's a transmitter.
Well, I'm glad I asked because I had no idea. And because when you were saying first, like at the terminal, if you're using it, I can kind of like grasp that concept, but just the concept that it's sitting in my purse and somebody can still get my information, that's pretty darn scary.
If they can energize that card, that chip, with their scanner, they sure can. That's why they sell those sleeves, those protective sleeves.
Do you think eventually that those will go away because of that?
Hopefully somebody will shoot me before that so I can keep my mouth shut.
Okay. We won't talk about it anymore. Hey, let's end it with our song, My Way.
You know what? I don't have the words. Let's do it. Let's do That's Life Again.
Okay.
Okay, first let me turn my computer on so I can get my...
Let's do that.
I want to get...
And let's see. So while you're doing that, so everybody, I hope you really enjoyed my interview with Ron Klein, and he just has just a different way of thinking of things. And it's just crazy to me how somebody just invents things, and you think it's so simple. You just say, "Oh, that was so simple."
Linda, you don't have to be the sharpest knife in the drawer. All you have to do is be smart. Remember what I said smart was? Learn something new every day, pay attention, be aware, and simplify. You don't have to be the sharpest knife in the drawer.
So anybody can invent something, probably.
Yeah, just say, I see a need. What's the benefit I can provide for that need?
Okay.
You want to say, is this intellectual property? Is this unique? Does it provide a benefit? Is it an improvement over something that already exists? And then you talk about, and that's a whole new subject. I'm very good at provisional patents and utility patents. But that's, again, so anybody out there that's interested, I can help.
Okay, well, awesome. And we have, so the way for them to reach you, again, is the grandfatherofpossibilities.com. And then also look for their book, The Grandfather of Possibilities, written by Ron Klein.
Right.
And and then they're going to be in San Diego in December. I'm looking forward to it. But in the meantime, we're going to sing. Are you ready? You have it queued up?
I just wanted to say I have a shorter email address and website that points to that Grandfather of Possibility. If they want to know. It's the number 4, ronklein.com. That's the website.
Okay. I'll put that up on the screen here.
It's the number 4, ronklein.com. It's RONKLEIN.
There it is. Okay. So it's up on the screen there for ronklein.com. It's not as long as the Grandfather of Possibilities, right?
Right. And then also my email is just ronklein@4ronklein.com if they want to email.
Okay, fantastic.
Now I'm tuning up here. I'm ready. This is the most important part of the interview.
This is our favorite part. Well, wait, hold on. La, 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 la. Okay,
Frank,
I'm
ready?
ready. I'm ready.
Oops. Oh, wait, that's the end. Let me get the beginning.
Uh-oh. Well, that was the end of the song. Okay.
Oh, no. Wrong song. Okay, wait. You know what? Maybe we could just sing it together.
Sing it without the words? I mean, without the music?
Without the music. What do you think? Or I could try it real fast. Let me see if I can get them back.
Can you hear mine?
Make it a little louder.
You ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. That's life. That's life.
That's what all the people say. You're riding high. Then shot down. But I know I'm going to
change
to when I'm back on top in June. Yes, I said that's life.
That's life.
And as funny as it may seem, some people
get
stomping in a dream. But don't let it get me, 'cause this final world me spinning around. Best part. I've been a
pauper, a pirate, a poet,
a pawn
and a king.
I've been up
and down and over and out.
and I know one thing. Each time I find myself flat on my face, I pick myself
Up, get back in
the race. That's life.
That's
I
life.
tell you, I can't deny it. I thought maybe my heart
Just can't find.
I thought that's the same thing.
One single time.
I jumped right on that big bird, and then I fly. Oh yeah. I've been a
puppet, a pirate, a poet, a pawn and a king.
I've
been up and down and over and out.
I know
one thing.
Each time I find myself laying flat on my face, I pick myself up and get back
in the race.
That's life. Yeah,
that's life.
And I can't deny it. Many times I think of cutting like this, but my heart won't let me buy it. But there's nothing shaking coming this July. So I'm gonna roll myself up in a big ball and die. Oh my, yeah! Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, available for Hollywood interviews at any time.
Exactly. We're ready for our star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, right, Ron?
We're ready. Sorry I took so long. Oh my gosh, it was a whole hour.
It was 1 hour. That's all good. That's all good. But thank you so much. And I really appreciate you coming on and being interviewed. And it was good to see you, Arlene, too. And you guys go out and buy their book, The Grandfather of Possibilities. And if you want to reach Ron, you're interested in, especially like in his mastermind. Can you imagine being part of this mastermind group? I mean, just like craziness, right? Go to forronklein.com and hook up with Ron. You guys have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Linda.
Bye.
You're welcome. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care.